Do you think I definitely saw the pros and cons of him kind of playing politics, but he seemed more of a country before politics kind of person, right?
This is Kiwanuka.
Yes.
Yeah, right. No,
If I'm remembering right, he kind of played who were the two leaders? Amin and Adoki.
yeah,
He kind of played a little bit of politics trying he was first with Adoki and then he went with Amin, right? And then
yeah,
he went with Adoki.
yeah, both day. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna butcher that name.
Yeah, so well, Kiwanuka himself, as you read, was one of the early political leaders during the independence period, and he was the
Right.
leader of the Democratic Party, which is no direct relationship to the U.S. Democratic Party, but it took its title from the idea of trying to empower the people, and but it was predominantly, especially in its early years, made up of Roman Catholics who had been largely marginalized politically during the colonial era because the British in general favored more the Anglicans. And as I said earlier, there were these various political religious tensions. So in some ways, not wholly unlike Northern Ireland, it was sort of an empowerment movement to try to enable Catholics to have a voice at the table. But I think where Kiwanuka made a good move and is a good lesson, I mean, he didn't lose that. As you could tell, he was a devout Catholic himself. But he tried to broaden the party as well to include, Anglicans and Muslims, and to not become what's called a sectarian party, which means that the party is just about furthering the religious interest of your church or your religious group. And that accusation was thrown at him a lot, but I think it was actually used in a polemical way or in a kind of propaganda way. I think at his core, Kiwanuka was a kind of small L liberal Democrat. I mean, in terms of really seeing the broader common good and really aware of the danger of a kind of religious sectarianism or even ethnic sectarianism. And so, he was from Uganda in the South, but his party had branches all over the country and were very much a national party. He was, as you read about, was the last leader in Uganda to lose an election and step aside. As we're seeing in the U.S., apparently is not the easiest thing to do.
I always thought it was the norm until
you gotta go. You gotta, you shake your hands, and maybe I should send my book to President Trump and tell him to read chapter 1. All right, but in any case, so he spent a lot of his time in opposition. He was a very principled guy, and as I write about it, maybe some have criticized him for being almost so principled that he didn't make compromises at times or could be a little bit arrogant at times about talking down to people. But I think, when I look back on him, to me, he's a real example of, these ideas of truth and justice, not that was the motto of the party, and not those aren't just slogans. It's not just a bumper sticker, but to actually try to live out and lead a politics of truth and justice, and particularly against political lies and propaganda. And in that sense, I mean, I do, on the question of whether he's a martyr, I mean, I actually do, I would say so. I mean, I think there is a place for people who give their lives for the common good. I mean, he's not killed, quote unquote, because he's a Roman Catholic who goes to mass, but I do think he was killed because he wouldn't compromise the rule of law and judicial independence. And I mean, God knows those issues are really big, right, all over the world. And I think it's important to hold up, if you're going to talk about saints or martyrs, I mean, to hold up examples of people who've stood for principles that do matter in an ethical way. And I think for him, it did come out of a religious core. He really, I think, felt that I got to do this. God's going to judge me. I got to really, even if that means my life is on the line. And I think whatever his faults, I think there's a real courage and admirable heroism and that kind of commitment.
I'd have to say that's one of the things I respected most about him, because I was trying to put myself in his shoes. Like, if I'm trying to lead my country towards progress and I know the opposition who's running this campaign against me is just dirty, but
Right.
they win, and I'm in power, I have the opportunity to shut them down or try and keep the peace.
Right.
And he did what he preached.
Right.
I that's I think a hard pill to swallow, losing any election like that, but to just put your country before yourself, that's
Right.
hats off.
No, I agree.